Thank you.
Good. So we're going to begin right at the beginning of this week's Sedra. And this is the beginning of the Sefer Chamishi, the first Sefer of the Chumash. And this is from now on Moshe Rabbeinu talking. So even though Moshe Rabbeinu said all this, and the Gemara says, "Mi piatzmoi amra," he gave it over from his own mouth, as it were. However, Tosfos writes over there in the Gemara, right near the end of Masechta Megillah, Tosfos writes that Moshe said it Beruach HaKodesh, that even though he said it mipi atzmai, he gave it over, however, Beruach HaKodesh. Well, that demands a whole big inquiry as to what was the actual status of Moshe Rabbeinu's repeating the Torah. Because if it was just purely to make what we might call chazorah, to go back over in order to freshen it in the minds of his kahal and so on, it's a little difficult to learn that way, because after all, the whole Torah was written down. Moshe Rabbeinu wrote it down, and it was and at his passing he gave it to the Leviim, and it was written after that, generation to generation. So the whole Torah would anyway, as it was in the first four Sfarim, what the Ramban tells us, that's really the Ika Torah Mitzvahs, it would have reached us anyway. What is the nature of this whole union of Moshe Rabbeinu repeating the whole Torah? So it comes on Rashi. Rashi says, straight on the spot, without even going into a discussion about the matter, Rashi says, at least for the time being, he said, Lafi shahen divrei teichochos, Amana kan kol hamakim asher yichiso lifnei hamochem behem lafikach sosom hadvorim. He mentions them in such a way that it's not clear exactly to what places and to what inyonim and to what things. Therefore he just calls it Eila hadvorim, these are the inyonim. And then he mentions later, so Rashi said, because these are words of reprobation. How do you call it?
Rebuke.
How do you call it?
Rebuke.
Teichocha means to call somebody to rebuke him, I suppose we might call it, or to give him Musa, to give him a very strong form of Musa. So what would be, if we just think for a moment, what would be Rashi's his reasoning that he just said what a pshita, that this is all, and the whole parsha, we notice that Rashi keeps mentioning the inyan of teichochas. So even though other things are mentioned in the parsha, and the parsha begins Moshe Rabbeinu going back over all the events that were during the 40 years of their whole status in the desert and so on. Rashi keeps stressing that these are divrei teichocha, how to call it, rebuking and strong words of calling to order the Jewish people. And the truth of the matter is, if we examine, carefully the whole Sefer Devarim, then the whole Sefer Devarim is really a continuation. Because next week's parsha is also very, very sharp remindings about the ego and here in this parsha, you've already had it in the Chittas. He goes into the whole story of the Meraglim and everything in detail. And if you look carefully through the whole Sefer, even though it mentions a lot of the mitzvahs, it mentions them like almost, we might say, as part of a general pattern, that since he's anyway telling everything that occurred, then he tells them what mitzvahs they got. And why is he telling them everything that occurred? Because he wants to, as it were, he wants to call out in them something. He wants to rebuke them. And therefore, if you look through the whole Sefer Devarim, it's like one long teichocha. And right up to the end in Pasha Netzovim, Pasha Vayela, right at the end before the Siyum of the whole Sefer, and also the song Hazino, at the end, is a long series of different rebukals. Teichocha is very sharp.
Very sharp. Yeah, that's
so
the sharpest one, I think.
We see that the whole Sefer is built that way. So and Rashi brings it out and stresses that and makes it apparent to our notice. So what is the B'derech Pshat? What is Rashi's obligation in his view of the whole thing to learn that way? And that is that we have a klal that wherever it's written at the beginning of a new chapter, the word Eile, then that is like something new. It's like a new Eile, Hadvarim, or Eile, Ha'inyonim, or Eile Zeh. The word Eile means these, yeah? That's a new beginning. It's not necessarily connected to where it's written the Eile with a Vav, then the Vav connected with what was there before. So even though the word Eile generally is taken by our sages to imply a new inyan, a new stuff, but it's connected and it has a strong connection with what was there before. Or where it's written Eile without a Vav, it's like a whole new thing. So Rashi learns that since this is part of the Chumash, and it's a central part of the Chumash, what is a new thing? What do you mean a new thing? Eile means like a whole new inyan. Yes. Therefore, after examining carefully the content, Rashi reaches the conclusion that B'derech HaPshat, in the simple sense of understanding the Chumash, well, this is a sefer of teichocha. In other words, a sefer of rebukal and like calling Yidden very strongly to attention, to put it mildly, and as we see it just goes on, and the mentioning of the mitzvahs is lav davke b'derech chazorah. It's not so much that he's repeating it, because that's not necessary, learns Rashi. Now this is a new thing, b'negeh, to the whole Torah. And the truth of the matter is that it's a very deep implication. Are you reading something else, or you're holding with us? Right? Very deep implication here in the whole thing, that really Moshe Rabbeinu is moving towards a whole new thing, which is called Torah Shebe'al Peh. In other words, the Sefer Devarim is like a middle point, how do you call it, a mamutza, between Torah She'biksav. Well, that's Torah Mamish Min HaShamayim, that Hashem gave the written Torah to Moshe. And I think we said in our last class, or one of our last classes, that Moshe Rabbeinu was just like a funnel. He just gave over everything that he heard, and he was just like a pipeline to reveal that to the Jewish people. Over here, he's, as it were, talking with Moshe. There's a Devarim Moshe. So Enoch there. So that tends to imply that Hashem wants ultimately that the Torah should be built through a feedback from man, or through a shtatfut on the part, how do you call it, a joining into partnership of man, and that becomes an essential part of the Torah until it eventually becomes Torah Sheba'al Peh. And therefore, the generations that followed, they were the lead-in to those great people that are mentioned in Pirkei Avos at the beginning. Well, that's Sefer Devarim. It's like a mamutza where it begins the whole human contribution to the giving of the Torah. And that's a very profound secret that Hashem wants, that there should be a human participation in the whole giving over of the Torah, and ultimately it becomes of tremendous significance in that we have the whole Mishnah and the whole Talmud and the Talmud Yerushalmi and then all the great Medrashim like the Sifri and the Sifra and all those inyanim, and it just keeps going and going and going until you eventually find the other night was the Rambam, the Siyum. They made a Siyum on the learning of the Rambam. That the Rambam made the most unbelievable task, and he performed the most immediate, and his name was Moshe, and that's the famous quip that from Moshe to Moshe, there was nobody like Moshe, is that Moshe ben Maimon, he gathered the whole, and him and his personality, he gathered together the whole Torah Sheba'al Peh. Well, that's like the, as it were, the finality of Sefer Devarim, or in a way like the perfection of Sefer Devarim. But Rashi learned, but there are hapshat, that it's inyan teichocha. So we need to understand, if we're going to learn that way, v'derech hapshat, that it's a inyan shel teichocha, according to task, and what he called rebuke and Musa, to use a very person. What would be the milah and the purpose of a whole sefer which is devoted to Musa? Obviously there must be some purpose in that, and that's like a go-between point between all the generations that will follow and the Torah Sheba'al, which virtually finished with the end of Bamidbar. Like we pointed out, that's the completion of the Torah Sheba'al. So what's this whole in the middle of Teichocha? So what I want to suggest to you is that there's a pasuk in Mishlei, or I think Mishlei is Proverbs, but everybody's familiar with this pasuk, but maybe not the continuation of the pasuk. And that is that the pasuk says, "Ki ne'er mitzvah v'torah oyer," and then the pasuk says, "V'derech chayim teichachas mosa," and the way of life is teichachas mosa. It's called rebuke and calling to task. So the pasuk says that mitzvahs are like a nail, they're like a candle. What provides the oil, how do you call it, the flame, and the oil which will light up on the candle, well, that's the Torah. Yeah, without studying Torah, you don't really know what you're doing. Torah is like the the light and the biur of all the mitzvot. So what could be more than that? That seems to be the perfection of a Yid and Jewish life in Nia mitzvah v'Torah. So he says, you see the pasuk continues, and Shlomo Melech says, v'derech chayim teichachas Musa. The way of life is davke to face rebuke or to face, that is to use the modern expression, to face criticism, you know. So what does he mean? Derech Chaim, he's already said mitzvah and Torah. What other Derech Chaim is there? Derech Chaim, Teichachas Musa. What other Derech Chaim is there? So it comes along Siddur. Siddur tells us that when you do a mitzvah and when you learn Torah, then your mitzvahs through the learning of Torah are supposed to achieve something. And not only for you, in the sense that when there'll be the day of judgment in Olam Haba, that nobody will be able to say you didn't do the mitzvah. Not just for that, but when you do a mitzvah, you're supposed to bring down a divine influence into the world, what's called Uyer, Eloki, into the world, and that alters and changes the world around it, and it affects things, and it makes the whole world function differently. I'll just give you a quick example, maybe a controversial one, but I'll give you a quick example. Just a few months ago, the Rabbi Yamach Shimon sent about 1,000 missiles in the space of a few days. And these missiles are very, very damaging things. 1,000 of them, all over the place, and basically very little damage was done. Most of them fell in open places. So I thought the question, how many open places are there in Israel? It's a pretty packed sort of a place. It's not very, the only real open place is the sea. So quite a lot of them fell into the sea. Plus. So what I want to suggest to you is, why did that happen? So all sorts of guys will tell you, and they will say, oh yeah, the Arabs are Batlanim, they don't really know what they're doing, they're this, they're that. That's very hard to say, because the guys that they have looking after these things have been trained and everything else. They're supposed to know exactly what they're doing, and they probably do. So, so what I want to suggest is that there's been a tremendous movement in Eretz of what you might call tshuva, A lot of people, just over the last Zman, have been mitkarev, to Yiddishkeit. And not only that, the Rebbe said that whenever you put on tefillin with another Yid, you have a good effect. Now, all over Eretz, the Chabadnikas go around putting tefillin on people. They get unpopular with the city councils and everything in some places, not everywhere. But somehow or another, they manage to keep up their work, and a lot of people put on tefillin. So I want to suggest humbly that that's why these amazing things happen, because despite what the official ruling forces might want, this is gradually becoming a religious country. You understand? Eretz Yisrael. Very gradually in some places, but in other places with jumps and bounds, There's becoming a much greater awareness of what it means to do a mitzvah, what it means to learn Torah. You follow? So that means that there's a power in Torah of bringing down and changing the world. And that's the union of, Chassidus explains that that's the union of derech chayim. Derech indicates a passage from one place to the other. In other words, the divine light passes from being hidden altogether, and it comes down into revelation. That's derech. And chayim is referring to the chay hachayim, to the life of all life, which is elikus, derech chayim. But in order to really be worthy of that your mitzvahs should have an effect, you have to go through what's called teichachas musar. That's what the pasuk says, derech chayim teichachas musar. So what does that mean? Well, that means rebuke. But it doesn't mean that you rebuke the other person. That's very easy.
Right.
What it means is that you rebuke yourself, and you work on yourself, and you work towards changing yourself. In other words, you don't want to be what you were before. And b'meira, so I want to suggest that a lot of these people that they put on tefillin, at that particular moment, they change a lot. And you'll notice that. I don't know if you guys go out on Mivta Tefillin occasionally. But I remember when I was younger, not all that tremendous amount of time ago, I used to go regularly with people putting on tefillin, and you could see, people mummies, they undergo a sort of a reversal of their whole selves for a few minutes. And it could be for a person like that's enough. You understand? That's called teichachas musa. But there's no such thing that if you want that your mitzvah should affect the world, and derech chayim, there should be mami, gile elakus in the world, mitzad your mitzvah, then there has to be teichachas musa. You follow? So, Moshe Rabbeinu, he wants that for all the generations, and Yidden are gonna, Moshe Rabbeinu foresaw, it's brought down at the end in Pasha Zaysa Brocha, that Moshe Rabbeinu foresaw all that was going to happen later. And he knew that because he wasn't going into Eretz, that the Beis HaMikdash would possibly be destroyed. You follow?
Yeah.
Elo Moshe Rabbeinu would have gone himself into Eretz, then the Beis HaMikdash would never been able to be destroyed. What that arouses certain questions, but let's avoid the questions for the moment. It would have been an amazing situation. But Moshe Rabbeinu knew he wasn't going into it, and he didn't go. But he foresaw all that was going to happen. Ad hadoyer ha'acharon. That's a huge amount of time. And therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu gave teichachas musa, he gave over a whole sefer, which is like a form of an intermediary, like I point, it's like linking. Yeah, the whole etzem Torah should be kshav, the whole etzem Torah that was just given down, divrei Elokim mamish, min hashamayim, and the ultimate generations which are going to follow, Yeshua and the Zakenim and all that. Now, this is like a mamutza, leading into them. It has to be in the form of a teichocha, because they're going to have to undergo a lot of changes in order to make that the Torah should affect the whole world. Yeah. So that's got a certain connection with the fact that yesterday was Hey Menachem. And Hey Menachem was also, like I mentioned, there was a siyum of the Rambam and the beginning. Yeah. And it's very interesting that right at the beginning of the Hakdoma, the Rambam writes about Moshe Rabbeinu. And he's all effective in his introduction. Yeah. That was yesterday in Hey Menachem.
Yeah, I read it.
So the Arizal, it's also, and it's brought down just by the way, that the Arizal was according to certain authorities, the Arizal was like a embodiment again of Moshe Rabbeinu. He was like Nishmas Moshe Rabbeinu. So that links it up interestingly with Moshe, but that's the inyan of me Moshe had Moshe like kom Moshe. Yeah. So that links up with the Rambam also. I just want to tell a couple of stories. I'm a bit late with my stories today, but everybody was no doubt anticipating. I don't know if they were, but we usually tell a couple of stories. So I think since we want to bring down now a certain point when I get to the Arizal, I think it's only fitting that we tell a couple of stories about the Arizal, and they will help us appreciate. Listen, I really want you to be part of the Shiur, but I need to know that you're listening to me.
I am.
If you're reading something else, that's a little bit not on. You follow? Are you writing notes?
Yeah,
I'm sorry. And they came the apology
No,
of
it's
mine.
fine.
I'm sorry.
I was finishing something else, but I'm kind of, there's so much to learn.
Are you writing something else?
No.
Are you writing?
I was
Very good. Great, that's wonderful. So, excuse me, you know that the great Talmud here in Eretz Yisrael of the Arizal was the Rabbeinu Chaim Vital. And the Rabbeinu Chaim Vital wasn't born here in Israel. He was from Damascus, you know that. And he came down specially to meet the Arizal. And according to the Arizal himself, one of the main reasons that he came to Eretz Yisrael, one of them, there were several reasons actually, why he came to Eretz Yisrael, was that he needed to meet up with the neshama of the Rabbeinu Chaim Vital. Yeah. So after they became very close, which is also an interesting story, how they got together right at the beginning. The Rabbeinu Chaim Vital used to follow the Arizal and used to watch him, everything he did. You follow? Mamis. He was just so completely and utterly taken by the Arizal and conquered by him that he wanted to see everything that he did. So he could write it down, because the Arizal himself didn't write anything, as is known. And maybe that'll be understood a little bit from what I'm going to say. So once, after he'd already known the Arizal for some months, he got a terrible pain in his eyes, the Rabbeinu Chaim Vital. And it was a continuous pain in his eyes. And he went to doctors and everything. And they said they can't find anything wrong with his eyes. And, you know, in those days they didn't have head scans and all this type of stuff. As much as they could see, he's okay, you know. So he went immediately to the Arizal, and he told the Arizal about this tremendous pain in his eye. So the Arizal said to him like this. He said, listen, I don't... we had a Tmiya Kayemas, you know, a ongoing question, where is Moshe? No, you've answered the question. Yeah. But anyway, the old saying in English has it better late than never. So the Arizal, the Rabbeinu Chaim Vital went immediately to the Arizal, and he asked him what was wrong with his eye. So the Arizal said to him, listen, I don't mind you watching me, you watch me the whole time. So he said, if you watch me, then that's good, you know. You want to, how's it written by Rabbi Shimon ben Azai? He said, Torah hu v'lumad ani tzarich. Yeah. That's what he said. You know the story in the Gemara, in the Masechta Brachos, right near the end, that Ben Azai followed Rabbi Akiva into the Torah.